Today on Between the Lines, a past guest of this show who's truly a viewer favorite, Alison Armstrong. I'm Barry Kibrick. Whenever Allison is on the program, I know my email inbox will be overflowing. Her revolutionary way of thinking about men and the secrets she offers women really do make a difference in relationships. With her latest book, Making Sense of Men, Allison takes us inside the hearts and minds of men while bringing out the greatest aspects of being a woman so that both can share a lifetime of love and caring.
But I'm a writer today because I was a reader when I was 11 years old. And it was...
You do not need to prove your state of happiness to anybody.
Most of these speeches were as much as a month in preparation.
Characters, the heroes in this book, are seekers of truth in a story that involves a lot of
You
corruption.
don't get a chance to really talk about what's real. And it's the first thing to do.
Allison, welcome back, my friend. This is, I think, fourth appearance, because it was... normally, you were only supposed to be on twice. You are the only author that, when you sat down with me, we had so much to talk, I had to go into a two-part show. So welcome back.
I'm so glad to be here.
And I am glad this book is so easy to read and get a handle on, because I said, oh, if I have to go into two parts, and as I looked, every one of the pages is folded down. You packed it filled with information, and I'm going to begin with these words. Celebrating Men and Marriage Workshops gave birth to this book about how men choose the women they pursue. But this is also bringing out the secrets best to all of us. And we were just here, and Luis came by, and he said, I need this book. This really is for men and women.
Well, as you can tell by the subtitle, A Woman's Guide to a Lifetime of Love, Care, and Attention for All Men, it was the first book of the four that I'm writing or have written that was specifically for women. But again, men reading it and being explained to women get so validated for why they do what they do, that it makes perfect sense why men do what they do, at least through my eyes. And men are like, yeah, that's why I do that. And so it's cool. I love it.
Yeah, well, it really does. It clarifies the way men are, and it allows women to peer into the way we are, and you do it. And this is what's neat about it. You do it with the true love and compassion you have for men.
Thanks.
And
I'm probably their biggest fan.
you really are. And that's what, because usually when you see Understanding Men, it's going to be one of those, he doesn't put down the toilet seat, that kind of stuff. And none of that plays in your books. And I appreciate that. I want to ask you about this, though.
Okay.
It goes back to how you almost got started. I was convinced, you, Allison, that I just wasn't the type of woman that men really loved. That is the concept for the woman who is reading this. If they feel that, that's what this helps clarify.
Well, we have these fairy tales that were shown since we're little, and we read romance novels, where the men go over the top for the main character. And so few women have an experience of that in life, of being adored, cherished, romanced, pursued, cared for. So few women ever experience what we read about. And my conclusion was there was just something wrong with me. I called it the Grace Kelly gene. I just didn't have what would cause men to relate to me that way.
Well, you mentioned fairy tales, and in a sense, it's a concept of a fairy tale that changed your whole way of looking at things.
Yes.
And it was when you were approached, I forgot who the gentleman was, I don't even know if you gave him a name, but there was a gentleman who said, Allison, what your problem is you're a frog farmer.
Right.
So explain that to people so that they can see how, and of course it implies the story of the princess and the frog. So
yes.
You were frog farming. Tell everybody what that is, and when you made that realization, how it shaped the consciousness of what you do.
Oh, that was the moment that really changed my life, because I just assumed that men were a certain way. And like most women, I was searching for one of the few wonderful men, and didn't know that I had any impact on the way that men interacted with me. until, his name is Herb, and he actually called my friend Lisa a frog farmer, which thankfully it wasn't me, because since I wasn't on the hot seat, I could hear it. It snuck in, and I had this vision of this huge white farmhouse and rows of frogs with little human heads. And frog farming is the opposite of kissing a frog and he turns into a prince. It's what women do to princes, and then they turn into frogs. And, you know, we kiss princes and turn them into frogs. We kick princes and turn them into frogs. We expect the prince to act like a woman, and when he doesn't, we punish him, and that turns him into a frog. It's basically a metaphor for bringing out the worst in men, and then assuming that that's who the man is.
Now, there's a point, though, when you make that realization, and I think this is important on so many levels, not only in your book that I want to bring it out. When you make that realization, you've made the realization that you can fix it, that there was something that you were doing.
Yes.
But so many times when people, quote, take responsibility, they oftentimes take a lot of blame. And you were very careful to almost not bring in that blame, but say, yes, I'm responsible, but rather than punishing yourself, which is what so many of us do, you really use that as a guide to improve and learn on how to deal with men. That difference is so important.
Well, there were two parts of that, Barry. One was I was so excited to find out it was me, because the alternative is that men really are jerks. You know, if I was bringing out the jerk in men, that gave me hope for who men were, right? Most women are just resigned. Men are jerks. I was so excited. No, they're not. I'm bringing it out in them. That means I could stop. But what is it? What am I doing? I had no idea how I was bringing out the worst in men, because men are affected by things that women aren't. The part about that blame, as I found out what I was doing that brought out the worst in men, I also had to realize at the same time I was taught to be this way by unconscious teachers. You know, that I learned it from my mother, who learned it from her mother, who learned it from her mother, who learned it from their mother, and they never even knew they were teaching something so only, you know, harmful and ineffective. They didn't know. The teachers were innocent. As a student, I was innocent. So there wasn't any blame. There was just enlightenment.
Well, and that is what we hope all lessons teach us. But boy, oftentimes we do tend to turn inward. Yeah. And by the way, that would in a sense be just the opposite of the lessons you're teaching, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the realization when it snaps, you, as you say, become the biggest fan of men. Take us through a little bit of that, how that light bulb, that aha moment goes on, and now what you're doing to perceive men and what your courses and what this book does.
Right. Well, that was in February of 1991 when I realized I was a frog farmer, and I decided to study men to find out what was bringing out the worst in men. And I started with one question: what if men are responding to women? Which is not a genius question, but I realized that whenever a man was nice to me, I just thought he was a nice man. And whenever a man was a jerk to me, I just thought he was a jerk 24/7. It never occurred to me that he might have been responding to my tone of voice, my words, the look on my face, my body language. It never occurred to me he was responding to me. So I started studying men with the question, what if men are responding to women? And it's one of the things I'm kind of proud of, Barry, because I wasn't like a scientist setting out to prove that men were responding to women. I was just wondering if men were responding to women. And so I was open to finding out all the ways that men are also not responding to women. So our first interview, Keys to the Kingdom, about the stages of development, those are ways that men are not responding to women. It has nothing to do with me. He's being a knight or a prince or a king. This book is about one of the most profound ways that men are responding to women. That how we're being and what we're saying is causing a man to fall in love with us, or causing a man to keep his distance. You know, causing a man to want to take care of us, or causing a man to want to take our clothes off.